last question, which is quite not common, but that happened to my clients, and that's not much of people mention about it, is once they have got into the contract and they're waiting for the settlement, say 2 weeks before they settle, like they transfer all the money to the conveyancer and things like that. Do they have the right to check the property before they actually settle? Like everything is done deal now, but do they have the right to check the property to make sure that it is still in a condition for them to settle and move in?
In short, no, they don't. There is no obligation on the vendor to give access to the purchaser prior to settlement. And to be honest, if you read the letter of the law, my job is to protect the vendor's interests. If we look at the letter of the law, I should then be, if someone's asking me, should be saying, no, you can't have access, point blank. It's not going to happen. There are some issues and concerns that I have with that, and I'll give you an example. I recently sold a property for somebody that was perhaps a little bit, how shall I describe the personality? A little bit aggressive in terms of the transaction. They were trying to eke out every last opportunity. And so what happened is a day or so before settlement, I just happened to be driving past, and there I saw this fella up on a step ladder, and he was unscrewing the security system or the cameras.
Oh.
And so I wandered up and I said, look, what are you doing? Oh, well, it's not part of the sale. I'm taking it. I'm going, no. Please, you misunderstand. The terms of the contract are quite clear. If it's fixed, it's staying. No, but this is mine. It wasn't part of the deal. So we had this conversation, and he eventually understood that he had to leave it. I sort of casually looked over the fence, and there's all this rubbish back there. And I'm thinking to myself, shit, there's probably a skip bin or two of rubbish there. And I said, oh, you are moving that? He said, nah, their problem. So that's a typical case of, if I hadn't spotted that, we couldn't have dealt with it. Now, what happened in that situation, I took some photographs. I actually contacted the vendor's conveyancer and said, just a heads up, what's happening here is these situations. You might like to have a conversation with your client. And what, in the end, the buyer's conveyancer was also alerted, and the conveyancers together decided to withhold $5,000 so that the purchaser had an opportunity post-settlement to walk in, check everything was okay, and then they released the extra $5,000. However, what I tend to do with my contracts, every property that I sell, I have a professionally drafted 72-hour inspection clause in each of my contracts, because I want to protect my vendor. And it's there to protect my vendor. What this 72-hour inspection clause does is it does give the buyer an opportunity to inspect the property 72 hours prior to settlement, to make sure that they're comfortable that someone hasn't nicked off with the air conditioning unit, the security system, and hasn't left a bunch of rubbish behind. Where this came from is I did also have some situations where a purchaser refused to settle, and that inconvenienced the vendor with their forward purchase. They simply refused to they instructed their conveyancer, do not hand over the funds, because they drove past and saw some issues. The 72-hour pre-settlement inspection clause gives the buyer confidence that they are buying the property that was in the same condition as it was when it was shown it open. It means that we have fewer issues during that settlement process, and actually helps my buyers move forward with their my vendors, move forward with their lives in terms of their finances, because it's important. It's a really good question, Maggie, and it's one that crops up all the time. And at the end of the day, as a real estate agent, whilst we have a fiduciary interest for our vendors, we also, I think, have an ethical obligation to look after the buyers.